Hey there, Dave Paulides, Can't Have Missing Project, copyrighted edition for a video channel. And thank you for being here. This is going to be a video completely about missing people. I've got some really good letters and emails that have come in that are related to what we've talked about in the past. And we're going to get to those. A lot of people have sent me correspondence as of late about other people copying my work, taking credit for it. It's disgusting. It tells me that people can't do their own work, are unable to give other people credit for their work, and essentially want to reap the benefits of what I've done. I appreciate you sending it to me. The world's filled with these crappy people. Just the reality of it. And I've kind of learned to live with things over the years. I try not to let it get to me, but it does frustrate me because other people, a lot of villagers, unknowing, send me links to other people's sites and go, hey, do you know about this? Yeah, the guy who wrote about this on his site got it from my book. So, anyhow. Let's get to the stories, because there's some good ones. Dave, last year I spent the spring and summer in Winter Park in Glenwood Springs. Okay, it's just so everybody knows. Winter Park is on your way from Denver to Vail, up into the ski area. Winter Park's one of the first places you come to, and it's on the north side of the highway. It's a really cool place to ski. I've skied there several times. It's nice. And the area around it is really nice and it can get really remote. In Glenwood Springs is a location where they have hot springs there. It's really nice. And it's past Vail, about an hour, hour and a half. Winter Park in Glenwood Springs, I slept and lived outside the entire time and worked a day job. Two separate incidents took place that I hadn't connected until hearing Dave's recent video on disappearances northeast of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and watching a documentary on the commonalities. Here's what I got. Incident number 1. Around 12 a.m. one night in May, I was taking a leak in a lightly wooded area of Snow Mountain Ranch when I looked up to see what I can only describe as a translucent, phosphorescent, sheet-like object that was gliding about 1,000 feet above the ground. It was featureless, without any apparent source of locomotion, besides the edges of which were undulating in the way a manta ray fins do. I was dumbfounded. I watched it glide on a straight trajectory in a northeast direction until it went over the next mountain. Filming on my phone appeared useless, so I just watched and timed 3.5 minutes until it was out of sight. Stop there for a second. I've known some of the best videographers in the world, and one of the best is Les Stroud, Survivor Man. And Les told me a story that he was camping in British Columbia one time on the side of a mountain. He had all of his camera equipment with him, and he woke up in the middle of the night and over a valley. As he was looking out over it, at about eye level, was a UFO just sitting there hovering. He said, Dave, I'm a world-class videographer. I did not even think about filming it. I just stared at it, dumbfounded at what I was looking at. So the question comes up. When these people have these sightings, is their message sent to you subliminally? Hey, don't film this. You can't film this. Just watch. I don't know. It's interesting though. Incident number 2. While camping off a no-name trail near Glenwood Springs, Colorado, I felt a presence at my campsite. I'd been staying in this area for 3 months, and besides some run-ins with a growing black bear, nothing ever made me uncomfortable. Yeah, well, that would make you uncomfortable. I spent a lot of times hitchhiking, backpacking, and camping in the Southwest and Pacific Northwest, so I don't spook easily. Anyways, one day around noon, all the birds stopped chirping, and I felt a presence. I thought it may be a cougar because I'd been stalked a few times in Winter Park, and the feeling was similar. There was some movement in the trees above the creek where I bathed, and after seeing what almost looked like a very dark pair of eyes, there was a bit of visual disturbance, almost like a hologram. Then the trees moved like something had taken off out of them and flown away. I had just returned from a 2-hour round-trip walk to the grocery store, and was spooked enough to turn around and spend most of the day closer to the trailhead. Now I wonder if both incidents could have been involved in the same creature. Apart from those two occurrences, I haven't experienced anything nearly that strange that I couldn't write off as sleep deprivation, side effects from medication, etc. Anyways, if anyone read this, I hope it wasn't a waste of time. Well, there you go. I read it to thousands of people. The translucent issue in the sky is intriguing. I have personally spoke to several people that have been in the woods and interviewed them about things they've seen in the sky that just can't be explained by anything we know of. And some people have reaction A. They're scared to death, want to get out of there, and can't spend the night. Number B, they're mesmerized. They want to watch it, but can't believe what they're seeing, and they're intrigued. Now, what causes those different responses? I don't know. Is it something that's implanted in your mind, or is it just the natural response we have ingrained in us based on our teachings over the years? I don't know. Next one. Dear Dave, I wanted to share something that was told to me that supposedly a grief counselor told a friend of mine. It always struck with me, and I hope that these words will help you as much as they've helped me and my friend. So, some newbies know. My son Ben took his life a year ago this last January. It's been an ongoing struggle. I won't say it has been easy. I will say it's changed the course of my life. It's changed me as a person. And I can't imagine, I could never imagine going through this. And I could never have imagined the impact it's had on me. So my friend was sitting there staring off into oblivion after a session. The counselor came over and sat down next to my friend and said this: I have good news and bad news. The bad news is you'll never be the same again. You'll never be whole. This has taken a piece of you that can never be replaced. It has changed you forever. The good news is you can get through it. Your son will always be with you in your heart and your mind. Once you get past the pain, you'll be able to close your eyes and remember everything good that your son did, all the beauty and light he brought to this world. But if you don't face it and walk through, you'll cheat yourself from having those memories. You'll end up closing yourself off from those experiences that you shared. The key is to walk towards and through the pain, and eventually it will change. Thanks for that. For me, it's been different. I do have a tough time getting past it. And I have no problem seeing all the good that Ben and I have done together, all the fun we had. That's not my issue. You know, in the movie The Matrix, I tend to think about that sometimes. Like there was a tear in the Matrix. Because I have a hard time accepting that Ben was supposed to go. Maybe it's my selfishness. Seeing how smart this kid was, this young man. Seeing how much he did in a short period of his life. It's still hard. 14 months later, 13 months. My counselors tell me the same thing this says. Focus on the future. focus on the good things, and I do. Trust me, I do. Same letter. There's another saying from my father's village in Mexico that has been passed down generation to generation. Solamente los muertos vivirán siempre. It means only the dead live forever. In our hearts, in our minds, we keep them alive, the good, and even sometimes the bad, because our love for them continues to teach us so much. I hope and pray this helps in some way. Thanks. And again, for me, and for many others, Ben will live in the work he did. I can think about Missing 411, the first movie. His idea, he thought of it, and we did it. And that'll live forever. And then each one of the videos we did on this channel at the beginning that have the little black boxes. The little black boxes were Ben's idea to put the victim's photo in there. Friends, I can tell you I'm a lot better than I was a year ago. For a multitude of reasons. But I'm not the same person. Next letter. My family and I are avid watchers of your videos and movies and readers of your books. We're excited to get our copy of the new Idaho book. Watching today's video, I was hit by an overwhelming need to pass a message on to you. Ben's passing was so upsetting to all of us villagers. I cannot imagine the pain you feel as a parent. No parent should have to endure this, but it struck me that God doesn't make mistakes. Ben was a pure soul and might have been better suited in heaven than on this earth. Ben's passing was driven your message into power drive. We will probably never know the number of people you have saved because of your sincere passion to educate your audience about suicide. Your new segments on factual news are awesome. While we search out other sources outside of mainstream media and have heard much of the news, you have a way to connect the dots and show us how these things relate to us in everyday life. I believe a great deal of villagers don't know how or where to find this information, so your videos are firing and wiring minds to open up. Thank you. God doesn't make mistakes. This life is temporary, and I have faith we will be with our loved ones for eternity. I also believe that God is working through you now to get these important messages to us. God is our Father. Every parent's biggest wish for our children is that they are happy, healthy, and safe. It only makes sense that God is guiding you as father to father to protect his children. I don't know. I've had a lot of people write to me over the last year, and say that my talk about how Ben's taking of his life has affected me has caused them to take a second look at their own life. If you're a father or mother or an aunt or uncle, you got nieces and nephews and kids, you can't take your life, because that is such a burden that you lay on the shoulders of those kids. You can't burden them with that. if you're a son or a daughter. You can't take your life if you have 1 ounce of love for your parents. Because their lives, in many ways, will be changed for the worse. Oftentimes, I'll be at an event. Something will happen. Who knows? Who knows what it could? It could be anything. And I'll think about Ben. I'll think, damn, if he was here, we'd be having a good time. If he was here, he would see the importance of this. That's the hard part. That's the hard part of getting through this life for me. I see too many times where we could have been stronger together. As I tell you, as I've told many people along conferences and things, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. The newspaper's going to be different. What's important today may not be important in a month. What people are afraid about today may not be tomorrow. And what troubles you have today may be gone next month. Just get past that minute, that 10 minutes. Call somebody, call a suicide hotline. Get a hold of NAMI, N-A-M-I. They can help. But don't end it. It will be a crushing blow to people around you. Next letter. Dave, I love keeping up with you. You got my prayers always as you deal with this grief. 10 years ago, I found my mom unresponsive in bed the day after Easter, Sunday night, right after her birthday. I'm a physician trained in CPR and was unable to revive her. I struggled for about 5 years living alone in her 5-bedroom home. It took me forever to move the 5 generations of family heirlooms. Sheesh. Very therapeutic once I was able to move. I struggled with drinking. Doused my problems. I ended up just getting sick. I can truly attest that God delivered me from my grief through it. But it naturally takes time. I do have hope that I will see her again in heaven, thanks to the blessed hope of the resurrection. Jesus does give me that hope, and He's always available watching over you and Ben. Love you, brother. Keep up the good work. What a ministry you have, brother. God bless. Thanks for taking the time to reply. See you down the road. P.S. Stephen Gregory was on Coast to Coast the other night, and your name came up. You're quite popular and well respected by all, David. Thank you. You know, a couple of years ago, I was doing a conference in Arkansas, and George Norrie was there. And George and I had met several other times. And you always think of a persona of somebody, and you hear them on the air, and you don't really know what they're like until you shake their hand. First time I met him was many years ago at a conference we did in LA, a big one. He sought me out, and he was very, very polite. In the last several years, we've done dozens of more interviews together. And in Arkansas, he came over and he said, you know, Dave, he said a similar thing he said on the air. He said, I'm not just saying this because it's you, but out of all my guests, you're the #1 requested guest on our show. And he said, every place I go, they ask about you. That's pretty humbling. I told him I appreciated that. He said, you know, the common theme is that you don't make things up. You're credible. Tell the stories the way they are. You show empathy towards families. And you're talking about a mystery that no one really ever vetted and understood. I told George I appreciated that very much. And every time I'm on coast, he's one of those guys that's very nice to me. I appreciate that. Next letter. Hey Dave, I've been having some dreams lately and I really hope they don't mean anything because these dreams are about a coming catastrophe. Yeah, let's hope that's not true. Some of your cases are about very intelligent and kind people who just vanish. That's true. What if these people are taken upon an ark in case of a cataclysmic event? That way afterwards they can prevent our extinction by repopulation using the peoples they've garnered. Some of these people you have mentioned are the best that the humankind can offer. They're very intelligent, athletic, healthy, and very kind. It's true. If I was an intelligent alien species and knew of coming mass extinction-like event and wanted to preserve the human race, I would choose the best, the brightest humans to rebuild the infrastructure, human society. What if this is part of the rapture mentioned in the Holy Bible? I've been having deja vu experiences ever since I can remember. And when that happens, I think to myself, I've been here before. I've seen this in a dream. And a few times I've been able to predict what happens just a few seconds into the future. Like a person says something, and I knew what they were going to say in those exact words, as if I was recalling from a memory. Unfortunately, I don't remember details from most of my dreams, just bits and pieces. Something is definitely going on that is beyond our understanding. We are due for a 6th mass extinction event, scientists have said. If an ark is being assembled and is Plan A, your research might save countless lives in the years to come. I don't know how exactly, but I have a feeling that you may have a bigger role in all of this. I pray every day, and today I pray that I'm wrong, and that Jesus saves us from ourselves. Thank you for your dedication and your hard, selfless work. God bless you and your loved ones. Thank you. You know that mass extinction event? A couple years ago I did, a couple weeks, interest grabbed me on the Yellowstone Volcano. Yes, Yellowstone is a giant volcano. And the rumors are, if it blew up, it would probably take most of southern Montana with it, and parts of Wyoming. I'm talking dozens of miles in every direction. And it would destroy everything within 100 miles. And then it would blow east with the jet stream, a dust cloud that would just cover everything in the first couple 100 miles in feet of volcanic ash. It would change the world forever. And there's rumors that there's been more earthquakes there in recent times. And there's rumors that the National Park Service may not tell us the truth about what's really going on there. The U.S. Geological Survey may not tell us the truth. But if that did happen, you definitely want to be living somewhere in the far west coast of the United States. You wouldn't want to be downstream, and you wouldn't want to live anywhere near Wyoming or Montana. Well, I'm living in Montana, so it kind of tells you what I think. If I die, I die. If it happens, it happens. But that is one of the big cataclysmic events that's in the news fairly regularly. You might want to look into it. Yellowstone Volcano. So this one, the title is Car Sighting. As you know, I've written about several stories where people were in a car, they find the car door open, the window half down, person gone, not found. What happened? And this is an interesting sidelight. First of all, thank you so much for all you do. I discovered Missing 411 on YouTube and have been a dedicated villager ever since. Thank you. Let me stop here. Please, if you're a villager, check to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've gone through this hundreds of times. The amount of villagers that have been unsubscribed, not by their choice, are thousands. So, check. My encounter was March of '92. I was in the process of moving from Vancouver, BC to 100 Mile House, which is about 264 miles north of Vancouver. So let me stop. If you've never been to Vancouver, Canada, you should go. Because Vancouver isn't pretty, but it's okay. Parts of Vancouver are pretty dangerous, but go north on the highway out of Vancouver, up towards Whistler. Pristinely beautiful. Keep going north and it gets more and more remote. Awesome. I was bringing the last of my things and was driving north through the Fraser Canyon with my 3-year-old son. At about 9 p.m. and no one else on the road, it was pitch black other than my headlights. All of a sudden I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw what looked like a single bright light behind my car. At first I thought it was a truck with a burned out headlight because it was sitting quite high. But as I looked again, I realized the bright light was not to the left or right, but directly in the middle of my view. Started getting very nervous. Took another look, and this light started to rise. At that time, I pulled over. My heart was racing. It's a pretty gutsy move. I could not figure out what I just saw. I turned around. There was nothing there. No car or truck had passed me, and it was dark and quiet, no noise at all. I could not wrap my head around it. The only thing I could think of was a helicopter, but I heard nothing at all, so it really baffled me. I'm just glad we made it to our destination safely. I always look forward to your next video. It's as though you are sitting in my living room talking to me personally. In fact, Dave, I think you are my therapy. Thanks again from beautiful British Columbia. Well, thank you. I am talking to you guys. You are in your living room, kitchen, rec room, man cave, woman cave. But I am talking to you guys. I can remember when I was in college, speech and debate class, and they teach you how to talk about a topic and not be intimidated by who's in the room. One of my instructors said, hey, don't be intimidated by those people out there. Just imagine them and their skinny, ugly legs standing there in their boxers looking stupid. And then just talk to them. So, I don't know what you're wearing, but sometimes I wonder if anyone's even watching me. But here we go. Next letter. Mr. Paulides. I'm an ex-police officer from the UK and I've been following you for a while. I have a few thoughts on what is occurring, and I've become aware of a couple of incidents in the UK and in Ireland, plus a perplexing case in Indiana I feel could warrant further investigation. First case, Wicklow Mountains in Ireland, a national park, a heavily wooded area with a massive reservoir called the Liffey, Liffey, to the western edge, and not far from the Irish Sea on the east. It's a creepy place. It's also made of granite, the largest spot in Ireland. It's the hotspot for Irish UFO and USOs, and over the years dozens of people have simply vanished. Most have never been found. Interestingly, several dogs have suddenly disappeared on walks, only to be found several weeks later despite thorough searches. Some of the cases can be put down to murder, but some are just strange. Second, Cannock Chase in northeast UK. It's a national park, severely wooded by a large body of water. UFOs are a regular occurrence. Sounds akin to Bigfoot are heard regularly. People regularly go missing. I've written about disappearances there. Third, Delphi, Indiana. Two teenage girls named Abby Williams and Libby German broke routine in February 2017, taking a day off of school to hang out. The day was strangely warm. They went to a place called the Manon Bridge Trail, which is less than 100 miles from the southern tip of Lake Michigan, just east of the Wabash River. Also strangely just east of a U.S. aggregate quarry that mines minerals is Indiana. It's one of the largest producers of granite in the U.S. Several other missing 411 locations are also near the mines and quarries, I've noticed. True. The area is a small country park, thick woodland, a cemetery on one edge, with a small river creek running right through it. It was in mid-late afternoon when they got dropped off. They walked the trail and disappeared. Now, the common theory is that this was a murder, as they recorded as a yet unidentified man following them, with a 2-second audio clip saying "down the hill." That's all the police have released, despite Libby's sister saying there's nearly 10 minutes of audio and a bit more footage. However, this is where it gets strange for me. The girls' bodies were found uphill from the creek. One of the girls was naked and the other's shoes were neatly found on the other side of the creek. Both girls had no obvious injuries, according to Libby's sister. The area they were found is literally in eyesight from the opposite bank and had been previously searched. There was no foliage in the trees, so they should have been found right away. The trail was fairly busy and nobody heard screams and saw anything. One man abducting two girls in broad daylight in a busy park without anyone hearing or seeing anything, while not impossible, I just don't buy it. Also, the police haven't said anything. Literally nothing. It's almost as like they don't understand what's occurred. In a candid interview, the police said he'd never seen anything like it and that he found it odd. I don't know. Maybe it's just a simple murder, but something bothers me about it. Years ago, there was a guy named Richard Speck, and he kidnapped a series of nurses and held them in a room. And he murdered them one by one. One nurse survived. She rolled under a bed or a couch. And he just lost track of how many he killed. The point being, when you're a psychopath, you can control people. And you can control women if you're a man, if you're a psychopath. And if you have some type of weapon, it's even easier. The thought that this person that they have on film could control those two girls doesn't surprise me in the least. The FBI did a profile on this case, and it's just going to be a matter of time before that murderer is apprehended. It was a murder. Fourth, my thoughts. I believe there is a Bigfoot-type creature living in the woods. I don't even doubt it at this point. The hairs, the DNA, the sounds. I believe these creatures are responsible for a tiny, minuscule percentage of some of the strange abductions, particularly kids. However, I believe there's something else paranormal, spiritual occurring with the majority of them. Also, I believe there has to be more of a connection to the victims. The German thing intrigues me. As a second-generation German myself, do you know that according to Admiral Byrd, the German Nazis were the first to make contact with an extraterrestrial race? I'd be willing to bet that most of the victims had a bloodline to World War II era German officials somehow. I get asked 1,000,000 times a year about, oh, Dave, what was their bloodlines? Nobody knows somebody else's bloodlines. It's never, ever been listed in a police report, coroner's report. It's never in any public documents. Why? Well, first of all, it costs money to determine somebody's blood. And coroners aren't going to do that. They really don't care what kind of blood, A plus, A negative, B negative, AB negative. They don't care. And a couple of researchers have said, oh yeah, you know, so many people with this blood type, this happens to them. How do they know? There's no way you're going to be able to find somebody's dead blood type. It's not going to happen. So in the United States, your blood type is protected medical information under HIPAA, federal health law protection by the federal government. So might as well flush that idea. One of your letters was from a Panamanian man who I think was pretty much spot on. We humans are just part of the universe. Other beings come here and hunt, study, play with us, same as we do with elk or dogs or lab rats. Some beings are friendly and kind, some are not. I fully believe the government knows this, or at the very least have an idea. Take the information of the Space Force. Trump just didn't do that because he was bored. He did that for a reason. Even more so, Biden hasn't disbanded it. Again, there's a reason why. There was also a reason why certain places are off limits. If nothing was going on, the governments around the world would have zero need to investigate it. They just wouldn't. Even if they did, they wouldn't need to heavily redact reports, etc. Finally, a personal thing for myself. I'm drawn to the sea. I feel peaceful there. I'm a below average swimmer, but I'm not scared of the water. I go on the sea in pools, etc. But as soon as I can't touch the bottom, a feeling of cold dread comes over me. I can't explain why. I know I can swim enough to get back to shore. I know all I have to do is to put my feet down. I don't get the feeling in pools, just the sea. Coincidentally, I get the exact same feeling when watching videos of people going to the edge of space, like the guy who did it in a free fall, or when Russian pilots take their MiGs to the edge of the atmosphere. I don't know why, it just comes over me. Maybe it's my primal instinct telling me I have no business there. Thanks for everything you do. Keep it up. Thanks for the email. It's a good one. Why would we feel an attachment to the sea? Well, we're all raised in water or fluid, amniotic fluid, in our mom for the first 9 months of our lives. Maybe there's a calm serenity of being in that water. Obviously, we really don't have memories of that, but maybe there's something about that that draws us all to the ocean, or most of us to the ocean. Next letter. I believe you may have saved a life yesterday. I was hiking with my husband's sister and a nephew after work. My sister decided to bring her dogs since they needed the exercise. I was talking to my sister about your videos and about how I downloaded a personal locator beacon on my cell phone until I could actually afford to buy one. We were also talking about how some of the missing could have walked into one portal and out of another one, which may be high in the air, explaining the big falls some of these people seem to experience. Suddenly one of the dogs started to yelp in pain. My nephew took off like a rocket, and I started to take off with him. But then I remembered your videos, and I realized that if I didn't slow down, my sister would have been left alone. I timed my run with my husband cutting in front of me, coming down the mountain from the right and back a bit with my sister. The dog had gotten caught in a poacher's trap. My nephew had him out of the trap before we got there. Unluckily, the dog was able to walk. My sister and I brought the dog back to the truck so the guys could get back home and check out the trap. When we got back to the truck, it was about 5 o'clock, which is really close to the 4 p.m. time of the disappearance. I feel that something was trying to separate us, but luckily I've been watching your videos and I remember that what you said about point of separation. Thank you so much for your work and your videos. Wishing you and your family all the best. I'm glad somebody out there is paying attention. And yeah, that 4 p.m. time is important. The vast majority of disappearances occur right around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I guess I don't say it enough in the videos. Somebody asked me the other day, Dave, do you have disappearances in other countries? The answer is yes. 16 other countries I have documented cases in that mimic the ones we have here in North America. 16. I'm going to guess the number is probably 4 or 5 times that many of countries. But number one, it's hard getting press to cover just a missing person case in some countries. And there's a language barrier in some countries. One other thing before I forget. I get a lot of people from Australia wanting to order my books. I wish you could. The problem is our USPS doesn't deliver to Australia. I find it suspicious, but they blame COVID for their reason for not shipping to Australia anymore. It's bizarre. But I wish I could, but I can't. So I can't ship to Australia. New Zealand, same thing. All right. Now, a couple, 3 really interesting cases. First case is a young boy named Andrew Moew, M-O-E-W, unknown age, missing November 13th, 1912. He was with his 2 brothers, and they were deer hunting in Wisconsin, and they were all from a small town called Stanley. They were hunting in an area about 10 miles from their house in a city called Hannibal. Woods in this area, very, very thick. But the boys were experienced hunters, and they were going to spend the night and get an early start. Well, somehow, during the night, the boys said that Andrew got up and walked into the woods. They didn't know why. One of the newspaper articles stated he was in a delirious condition. I probably read 6 or 7 articles about it, all said the same thing. One article said, only one, is that he had been drinking. Okay. The brothers searched that night, couldn't find him. Yelling Andrew's name. The next morning they go get the sheriff. Massive search. All the cities in the area came in and started looking for him. Didn't find anything. Wisconsin has a lot of water, and they have a lot of disappearances. This is Lake Superior. If you guys follow this, you know that Lake Superior, this whole region out here, Michigan, Wisconsin, lots of disappearances. There are 2 different clusters of missing people in this area, right where this happened. And when you go down close and you look at this, tons of water. So, what happened? Well, nobody knew. But their families only lived 10 miles away. So they continued to search. 5 months after he disappeared, people are going through the woods and they find a pile of neatly stacked clothes. They call the sheriff. Sheriff calls the family. Family comes out and identifies those. And his brothers did identify as the clothes that Andrew was wearing the night he disappeared. Well, that's disturbing. Why is that disturbing? Why would anybody take their clothes off in the middle of November? And they weren't that far from the campsite where they were camping. They didn't say exactly where, just that it wasn't far. The area had been searched multiple times. It was searched multiple times. In the following 2 years, Andrew was never found. Remember, one of the things I tell you about is that it's pretty common that searchers find pieces of clothing, or clothing just as I described, from a victim. It's very odd. Some people will say, well, you know, maybe he just decided to strip him off because he had hypothermia. Not when you're that close to a campsite. Hypothermia takes a long time to get going in your system. It doesn't happen immediately. Next case happened to a man called Joseph Unger, 38 years old. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was a professional level bowler and a hardcore outdoorsman. Loved to fish, loved to hunt. He was a hotel owner in Pittsburgh. And he went to Idaho to research some mining opportunities. And he also wanted to hunt and fish. He was going to the Sawtooth Mountains. He and 4 friends from Pittsburgh made the trip. And they stayed at a cabin. The cabin was on a place called Vanity Creek. Well, the morning of October 9th, 1919, Joseph and a man named L.E. Fouts decided to leave, go deer hunting early in the morning. This story is not in the Idaho book. It's not because I'd never heard of it. This is what putting a book out does. It causes family and friends to read it and tell you about stories I would have never found on my own. Just too obscure, too old. Well, it took me a couple weeks to do the background on this case, but everything they said was true. It was very intriguing. So the 2 men went to an area near Duffield Creek and the Rapid River. And Fouts decided he was going to go up into the mountains and hunt. And Joseph said that he was going to stay down in the river area and hunt, hoping to catch animals coming out of the mountains and drink water. So that was their point of separation. Well, Fouts hunted all day, came back to the cabin, and Joseph didn't show up. The rest of the hunters all showed up. They waited till the next morning just to make sure he wasn't lost and would find his way back. Then they contacted the sheriff. Sheriff called, got a massive amount of people in there. Well, Joseph was a pretty important person in Pittsburgh, well-to-do. And he got state and federal authorities to push the search to even a higher level. And there were hundreds out there looking. Now, the water levels in October are low. But they didn't find any tracks other than that one area where Fouts said that they split up. That was bothersome to everybody. Nobody could figure out. They thought maybe that he had climbed up into the mountains, something bad happened, but they weren't sure. 10 months later, a sheep herder named Lorenzo Twitchell was moving sheep through this area. And he found an unusual sight. Let me explain where this area is. This is Vanity Creek right here. This is Boise. This is McCall, Idaho. There are a couple clusters of missing people in this area. Heavy timber. Lorenzo finds a body that's highly decomposed. There's some clothing still on the body. Right away, people said, well, he must have fallen in the water. But that really didn't make any sense to a lot of people. But that's what was said. The coroner got it and he couldn't determine the cause of death. Said that he thought he fell because the head had some injuries, but the head could have gotten those injuries from being in the water. Didn't make any sense. And Joseph was found in a creek. He wasn't found in a river. But what really sent my instincts into high gear is one article had one sentence that I said, what? It said, and I'm going to quote it, there are strange rumors about what happened to Joseph Unger. Friends, this is 1919. What kind of strange rumors would be going on out there? I don't think if it was a murder, they would say strange rumors. I have no idea in 1919 what they'd be implying. But the fact of the matter was, they could never determine the cause of death. He was found in a creek months later, an area that had been searched multiple times. It's a strange story, I got to tell you. And that one sentence bothered me. I wish that when reporters hear things like this, that they do their job and don't put statements in there just to leave us all unhinged, but let us know what you're thinking. Now, since I have an audience, and I know that there's a lot of press people watching because I hear from you all the time, and I appreciate that. There are very, very few true investigative reporters anymore. They're all afraid. But when you have a case and someone's missing, damn it, would you please ask the search and rescue people the hard questions? What do you think happened? Ask the search and rescue person. Why haven't the dogs found the person? How often do dogs not find people? Have multiple dog teams search for the person? Do you find it odd that you haven't found this person? Ask the tough questions. Then, maybe go back to the office and do an archive search and see if other people have disappeared there. Maybe that would be interesting. Guys and ladies that are writing for these small town newspapers, push yourself a little bit. Do a little work. Just don't throw a story up that has the bare bones details. Make a name for yourself that you're really trying to do something special. All right. So let me ask everybody, what is the largest cluster of missing people that fits the 411 criteria in the world? It's Yosemite National Park. You're right. I heard the yells were overwhelming. I heard you guys. A few of you didn't get it right. I'm a little disappointed. Yosemite. In the greater Yosemite area, there's over 100 people. In Yosemite itself, over 65, maybe 70 by now. Why is that? People would say, well, it's because they have so many visitors. Nah, it doesn't cut it. A lot of the people disappearing from Yosemite National Park are people on day hikes out of the valley basin, and they're never found. These aren't people going miles and miles and miles into the backcountry. They're people on a day hike that vanish. And you've got search and rescue people from the National Park Service and other jurisdictions that come in and search, and they're never found. That doesn't make any sense. Now, stay with me here, because this is a pretty good one. A man named F.P. Shepard. He was 25 years old. Missing June 17th, 1909. Yosemite National Park was established October 1st, 1890. Now, Mr. Shepard was born in the UK, and he was described as brilliant. Sound familiar? He wrote many poems and essays that were published in periodicals. He was that good. Well, he was employed by the diamond company called Shreve, S-H-R-E-V-E, as an engraver and diamond setter in their San Francisco office. Shreve had brought him to San Francisco because he was so good. He was living in a place called the Concord Hotel in downtown San Francisco. And at the time, he was studying French. He traveled to Yosemite to hike the Valley Basin and see the sights. He was in good shape. He was an outdoorsman. On June 17th, he met tourists at the Glacier Point Hotel in Yosemite Valley. And they decided that they were, as a group, going to climb the Sentinel Dome. So the group was climbing up the trail, well-defined path. And about halfway up, fog and rain started to inundate the area on June 17th. And everyone in the group decided to turn back except FP. He told the group that he was going to push on forward and he'd meet him back at the hotel later. Well, the group waited up, darkness fell. Next morning, he didn't show up. So they called the park superintendent. And at the time, Major W. Forsyth was the park commander / superintendent. And he had cavalry men assigned to him at Yosemite. And those people were immediately used in the search for FP. They also brought in bloodhounds from San Francisco, where FP lived, to search. FP had no relatives in the States, but his best friend was a physician from Oakland. And he pushed this search effort in a big way. He got a lot of resources there. He got bloodhounds there. And it was a huge ordeal for 1909. Now, here's the dome right here. I decided to use this map because this is all granite. This is the valley floor right through here. Now down at the bottom, this is the trailhead for the dome, and you can actually see it as it kind of winds its way through there. This is Glacier Point right here. All exposed granite. It's a mighty climb up here. Now the first night that FP was gone, it snowed. What have I told you about weather? Things weren't going well. But the soldiers pushed all the way to the Illilouette Valley looking for him. They couldn't figure out what happened to him. Some people said, well, he must have slipped and fallen. Okay, I hear that a lot about Yosemite cases. Where's the body? You slip, you fall, canine's going to find that smell. They're going to hit on it. Even if it's down inside of a crevasse, rappel down, get the body. Happens all the time. FP was never found. Imagine that. The millions of people that go to Yosemite every year. For the last 112 years, nobody's found him. Where'd he go? He was described as an ultra-honest person who had brilliant skills and a brilliant mind. Doesn't that sound a lot like the people I've described that have gone missing in the past from other areas in the U.S.? Now, FP has been one of those people in Yosemite that you put on that list of never found. And everybody just says, oh, yep, he wasn't found. Sweep it under the carpet. Let's forget about it. And if you've been a regular here, you know I've talked about a lot of those people that have disappeared in Yosemite under very similar conditions. Nobody ever sees them fall. Nobody ever sees them walk into oblivion. There's a point of separation. There's granite everywhere. But nobody wants to even acknowledge most of this. In fact, even though I have forced the National Park Service to release a list of missing names from only one park, Yosemite. And why Yosemite? Because I've written about all the cases. But they won't release an entire list of the missing from the National Park Service. So I've got to think that somewhere buried in that list are some people that have disappeared, and there must be some major clues in there that they don't want the public to see. Disturbing. Not a good way to run an operation. Now we have a new Department of Interior head who's a Native American lady. I always have hope that the next leader of the Department of the Interior will be somebody who has great ethics. But you have to remember something. They're coming into a swamp. You may be the new leader. You may think that you have all the power. But you have people working for you that have been in that organization for decades. And they don't want to change. And that leader is swimming upstream. It's a tough role. Tough role. There's a lot of skeletons buried in those closets. And they don't want the public to see them because it'll embarrass some of them. So friends, there's your 3 cases. Every one of these men had a family that loved him, cared about him. Shepard's case, his mom was in the UK, sister in the UK. Loved him, missed him. And the story will stay in that family forever. The number of bodies that are strewn in and around Yosemite are numerous. Wish I had some answers. Thanks for being here. I'm humbled that you watch. If you have the time, please give us 2 thumbs up. Let's try to push this agenda hard as we're going into spring. Tell people, always carry a personal locator beacon. Hike with a friend. Check the weather before you go out. Make sure you're carrying energy bars, extra water, compass, map, GPS. I'm grateful. Let's hope that I'll be here next week. And remember one thing, you are all important to this village. Without you and you and you, I wouldn't be here. So thank you. Love your family and do something special. Do an act of kindness for somebody, anyone, today. Thank you. Paulides out.